Hello, peace. This is your paper 2. Thank you for your patience. The European Union is seeking to challenge the International Accounting Standards Board's authority. Establishment of International Accounting Standards Board. The International Accounting Standards Board is a London-based privately held accounting company. It's structured across 2 levels. Committee on International Accounting Standards, often acknowledged as the parent entity, based in Delaware, USA. Structured across 2 levels. So right there, we don't have a complete thought yet. You said it's structured across 2 levels. This one, which is acknowledged as the parent entry. So maybe it would help to do something like it's structured across 2 levels, period. One level is the Committee on International Accounting Standards. I feel like it's another place where I would encourage you to use short sentences to make your work clearer, and do not worry that that will make it sound less academic or less professional, because in my professional opinion, it really, really won't. Okay, whose trustees oversee finance and the appointment of members to the board. So that little piece is also not a complete thought by itself. It needs to be hooked onto something else. So, acknowledges the parent entry based in Delaware, USA. It can be hooked onto something else, or again, you can have a shorter sentence there. What you need to make that a complete thought is their trustees oversee finance. When you start off with whose trustees, the meaning of it is dependent on what was in the sentence before, and it's kind of floating by itself. But when you start it with their trustees, that's starting a new complete thought, right? You have to know who the whose, you have to know who whose belongs to in order to make sense of that idea, and you want a sentence to be able to stand by itself, basically. Okay, the second level is the board, who have full sovereignty over IASB decision making. The IASB was established in 2001 and succeeds the IASC, although the influence of the IASC was limited after its establishment. That was changed in the late 1980s when they decided to partner with security regulators, mainly from the USA. So I gave you some sentence help there, but overall, I feel like that's, since I know nothing about this is pretty clear to me where we're going. We have these 2 groups. As of 1st January 2005, I'll say one tiny thing about that. So generally, Americans do their date this stupid way, where we say January 1st, 2005. I'm sure you've noticed that. It's just a dumb thing Americans do, so if you want to sound more American, you swap it around. But to my knowledge, everyone else in the world does it the way that makes sense: date, month, year. All stock exchange companies listed in the European Union are obliged to use international financial reporting standards. This is because of the failure of the EU to reach an agreement on a common accounting system. Interesting. Part of the reason being they wanted to promote the IASB in Europe. While the harmonization project within Europe was stopped at appeals for national sovereignty. Okay, so this is another place. This is a lot like up here where you started with whose. When you start with while, it's very easy to write a sentence fragment instead of a full sentence. Because you get into the thought and then it just feels like maybe you finished, but you haven't finished. So while the project was stopped, what happened? Usually you can fix that by hooking it up to the next phrases or sentence that you have. While the harmonization project was stopped, member states were illogically forced to unite against the threat of a standardization procedure controlled by the USA. So even though that's a long sentence, if you hook them together, the while and then all the other stuff does need to be in the same sentence together. I mean, a more basic example is like, while I was reading pieces of paper, right? I mean, like, while I was reading pieces of paper, what did I do, right? So in that same way, you need to, yours is much fancier, of course, but while the project was stopped, you need to explain what happened while the project was stopped. Okay, but still, like, the sense of it is coming through nice and clearly. Oh, sorry, back up a little bit. EU members agreed because ASB produced global private standards, which were less offensive to a host country than foreign public standards. Again, miraculously, that makes some sense to me. You're doing well. Power control within the EU. Over time, the power gained by the AISB has become doubtful, and international financial reporting standards was a battleground of controlling EU accounting standards. So you have that in quotation marks. Sometimes we use quotation marks to say, like, it wasn't really a battleground, you know? And my example for that usually is, like, I guess she must have borrowed my pencil, right? And by borrowed, in quotation marks, I mean without my permission. She took it. But the reason I'm guessing, I could be wrong, you have it in quotation marks is because it's not a real battleground. I mean, people aren't out there with swords, of course, like, excuse me, fighting about this. But if that's the case, you don't need to put it in quotation marks. Like, we know that you don't mean like an actual battleground. It was primarily established in line with the U.S. counterpart, Statement of Financial Accounting Standards number 131 for segmental disclosure requirements. IFRS 8 was substantially identical to the Statement of Financial Accounting Standards number 132, supporting those who suggested the process of harmonization led to Americanization. I still feel like we're on track. The European, as far as me understanding what's happening, right? So it was a battleground, but they were trying to get some kind of agreement. The European Commission was inspired to act after becoming aware of the risk that large European companies would be attracted to US GAAP. Europeans do not want to be like Americans, do not want to feel like they're under the thumb of the Americans, right? Which I'm guessing, which I understand. The EU was able to send the IASB an impressive signal that it was authorized to reject standards by taking advantage of its comitology process. I have no idea what that is, but maybe you do. IFRS 8 gave management a lot of freedom to report on segmental activities. It was less expensive than the previous standard for large multinational organizations. Along with the help of key institutions, the appeal of recognition by the world's largest capital market has played a critical role in pushing the accounting harmonization agenda. And the push of the, the world's largest capital market is the world's largest capital market, the United States. I'm guessing it's not the EU, but maybe that's just because I'm American and stupid. Okay, but I feel like I'm still with you. Values. The values that are displayed in this controversy are determination, reputation, ambition, and control. It was the desire for control that drove both parties against each other as they wanted authority and power for themselves. I'm loving this piece! Loving it. Both parties that were mainly involved were very determined to get what they wanted, regardless of the cost. The EU pulled all the stops so that, I think we should say pulled out all the stops, so that they would be able to gain a huge amount of power to contest the IASB's power. And the fact you didn't want to know, I think that thing about pulling out all the stops is about playing an organ, which is if you pulled out all the stops, those are the stops that keep the pipes closed. So if you pull out all the stops and all the pipes are open and you play on the keys, it's just going to be like, it's playing every single thing it can play. I don't know why I'm wasting your time with that. Okay, the ambition was a driving force for the EU, as without it they wouldn't have contested the IASB. To begin with, if they didn't have the motivation, they wouldn't have gotten to where they were. Moreover, the reason that IASB contested the IU was due to their reputation. They had a lot at stake. They were on the verge of losing what they had worked for all these years, and that's a lovely place to change paragraphs too. The values should have been presented were unity and peace. If the parties strived to be unified above all things, the conflict wouldn't have been an issue. The problems would have been tackled faster and more efficiently. If peace had been present, the board and the community wouldn't have been in chaos. Okay. They would have been able to see the real problems and find better solutions easily. Due to them prioritizing the wrong values, they were led down a, I think maybe you meant a path of conflicts and chaos. And that sounds cool too, conflicts and chaos. Ironically, this struggle and fight within the industry did more damage than their opponents could have done. Power. Those who are in power are IASB and the EU. The EU will earn more money while IASB will lose money. Again, I don't think you need the quotation marks. Although earn might not be the word that you're looking for. Excuse me, I'm guessing maybe gain is the word that you're looking for. because they're not like earning it, I don't think, like work and then we get this to earn it, but gain due to the way that things are financially structured, I'm just guessing. And the IASB will lose money. Again, I don't know a lot about this, but lose seems like the word that you would want to me. Although the EU system is cheaper, it would entice more people, therefore it still produced more revenue than the IASB. The legal issue within this controversy was transferring the power from one authority to the next. Yeah, I really don't think you need these quotation marks. The other reason you might feel like you need them is because someone else used that exact word to describe the process, one of your sources. And if it's just one word, you would almost never need to tell where you got that word unless that word was like a word kind of created or defined in a new way by the person whose writing you are using. Okay, then one with the original authority, IASB, is trying to counter the process. The political issue involved in the struggle for power in international accounting is the countries involved in the EU fighting over who would hold the highest power in the accounting world. Analysis. The European Union will have more benefits since they are the stronger side. Again, I don't think you need quotation marks. Politicians got involved as they are looking for a system to suit their personal needs rather than the general community's needs. So those needs belong to the community, but you're correct. There's more than one community, right? The general community's, no, there's only one community. The general community's needs. English does this super stupid thing, and I know you know about this, but just to review, where to make something belong to someone, we put an apostrophe S on it, which is outrageously confusing because we also use the S to make more than one. Like, as far as I know, no other language in the world does this, although I don't know a lot of languages. But so what you want there is, you're not talking about multiple communities, you're talking about the needs belonging to the community. So what you need there is COMMUNITY apostrophe S. It would force the other nations to adapt to the new system rather than what they're used to now. It would also compel the nations to rely solely on the new system while there is still a lot of conflict present. Got it. The EU has the right to contest the IASB with the ever-changing world. The methods used were going outdated. I think we would usually say we're becoming outdated. And it brought more problems than solutions. They hoped to bring in a new system that would coordinate with the economy. Publish What You Pay's campaign may have helped the EU to wake up to its processes of endorsement and arguably initiate a more substantive form of resistance to the IASB's perceived power. I have no idea what that means, but it sounds like you know what you're talking about. The challenge to IASB by the EU appears to have been driven primarily by a profound suspicion that, quote, American essentiality, that sounds like something that is an exact phrase that someone used, so I feel like you probably should keep those. Has been and has mainly concerned with and control of the regulatory process. Okay, so I think what you wanted to say there was American essentiality has been mainly concerned with control of the regulatory process. I think it sounds like you had some different ideas you mushed together there, maybe. Instead of agreeing on a new common approach between the two standard-setting bodies, IASB only appeared to take the U.S. standard. IFRS 8 was more appropriate for developed countries such as the United Kingdom and the USA, where large multinationals operate within larger communities. While in mainland Europe, it may be less useful. Okay, gotcha. Was there a... No, sorry, I think you're fine. Okay. While in mainland Europe, it may be IFRSs and EU traditions are likely to involve different attitudes and expectations and therefore may present problems, mutual suspicions, and uncertainties, which makes it... here's another place. Which makes it difficult for any of the standards to be implemented. Here's another place. When you start with the which, we're like, what does that connect to? If I just all of a sudden out of nowhere say, which was a really fun paper to read, be like, so that one is actually a little piece that needs to be hooked up to the previous sentence. Even though it's awfully long, while in mainland Europe, where did it start? These traditions are likely to involve different attitudes and may present problems, comma, which makes it difficult for any of the standards to be implemented. That sentence will still work grammatically if you hook that on with the comma, and then you won't have the fragment of which makes it difficult. Because we're like, What makes it difficult? Let me check the time and make sure I don't need to start a new video. Oh, I do.